we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom, about conventional wisdom, with my guest today, Patrick McCann. We are just going to have such a fun conversation today. So let me just tell you a little bit about Patrick and then we'll get into it. So Patrick's focus is the future resilience of city law, governance, talent pipelines, and trust. He works across leadership, education, and institutional reform to strengthen the long-term legitimacy and effectiveness of the city law sector. He's the chief executive of the City of London Law Society, where he works with member firms and a wide range of stakeholders to protect, promote, and future-proof city law. First of all, Patrick, welcome.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
And for those of you who are listening and you can't see us, may I just say that between the two of us, we are a vision.
I think we have covered every colour in the rainbow, have we not? And to be fair, Kim, I did go through my very colourful wardrobe and picked out one of my more colourful jumpers because I wasn't going to have you completely outdo me in terms of outfits.
Yeah, and may I say that your fingernails match your...
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, which is pretty impressive.
I had a very posh do to go to at the Lord Mayor of London's official residence in my capacity as in my role. So I felt this was needed.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I would agree. Absolutely. All right. I think we want to start by getting to know you a little bit. So I've got a random question for you, which is maybe not so random, but I have it on good authority that you were a very prominent and popular aerobics instructor. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into being an aerobics instructor and what that was like for you?
Yeah, there aren't many people that were working in law and being aerobics instructors at the same time, but I was one of them. I got out of being a lawyer and got into being an aerobics instructor almost at the same time. So what happened is I'd been a lawyer for 5 years at university and postgrad and then 5 years of working. And I remember there was a Friday night class that I really liked to go to in the YMCA here in London. And it was at 6 o'clock. And just every week I could never make it because some partner would come in and give me work to do at 5:30, which had been sitting on their desk for 3 days. It's difficult to explain. I was coming out as a gay man, or I had come out, and this was where my community was. This was where gay men were. They were in the gym, and you had three choices. You either did something arty, or you went to the gym, or you went to the clubs. And the clubs was just a bit too far in my journey for me, and I wasn't particularly talented. So I ended up going to the gym. And then I discovered a community, I discovered aerobics, I discovered a joy of dance type stuff. And so after a while, I just thought, actually, I think I can do this. So I think I can do this better than the teachers that I'm going to. So I took the course. Very quickly realised I couldn't actually do it better than the teachers, but then I worked really hard and it took me about 5 years and then I realised I could do it better than them. And then I just did more and more of it. At one point I was teaching 25 classes a week alongside a full-time job in a law firm and I loved it. And then I became really good, particularly at intricate choreography and particularly step aerobics. I don't know if you remember that. It was the 80s and the 90s. And I was like the guy for step in London. So people would travel. Some people would get on planes and come to my classes, which was mad. Not huge amounts. I didn't have thousands of people, but I had who are still friends. So I did that for 22 years. I think I taught about 14,000 classes over the time. And it really helped me just discover a different side of myself and just... it really helped me counterbalance the sort of the stress of working in a law firm and all the boringness and all the sort of the left brain thinking and the rules and stuff. And then I would be able to create what I regarded as like pieces of art, really. Just these really beautiful classes where we all just felt like we'd really achieved something. And we would love it when people would watch the class and not be able to do it and stuff. And so it was just lovely. I stopped teaching just short of my 50th birthday. I thought, actually, I've done that now. And weirdly, I haven't missed teaching from one day to the
Mm.
next. But I think that's because I'm in denial and I just don't want to acknowledge that I miss it. So now as I'm talking to you, I'm like, oh, I really want to go and teach again.
Yeah, I don't know about anybody in the listening audience, but I have in the last year or so gone to a very intricate step aerobic, like choreographed class. And let me tell you, you know what my win was? I didn't end up on the floor. I don't know that I did the choreography, but I didn't break my ankle and I didn't end up on the floor. So that was a win.
It was a win. And you know what? The thing I loved is if the choreography is intricate enough, I don't like it when it's too intricate and it's about the teacher showing off. I always tried to bring people with me. So I would always layer on one change at a time so that people would come. And if they couldn't quite get it, I wouldn't go to the end. But what I loved was they would be concentrating so hard, and then the sense of achievement at the end of the class, they would have completely, and I would have completely forgotten all the stresses of work that you brought into the studio. I thoroughly recommend any sort of exercise, but I thoroughly recommend my 1990s and 2000 step classes. So sorry if you missed out. Sorry, kids.
Yeah, I love that. All right. You've been around career wise, been around the block, right? A couple of times.
More
And
than, yeah.
yeah. And I'm curious, what is one piece of conventional wisdom, what you really thought as a young lawyer that you needed to do to be successful that you ultimately was like, yeah, that's not going to work for me?
Yeah, I think what it was, Kim, if I can encapsulate it in this, it was follow the rules, do what you're supposed to do, wear this, say that, appear to be this, laugh at the boss's jokes, do things in the order, be really eager, try not to question anything, know your place, know that there's a hierarchy, and you're at the bottom of the top half of it, if you see what I mean, because there's the people that are lawyers and they're the people that do other jobs in law firms. And work really hard, don't question it. I'll always think that there's this amazing partnership thing at the end of it. We have a phrase in the British legal scene, which is, and particularly in city law, which is called beasting, which means when you really work someone incredibly hard. And so you're just expected to be beasted. And you got this reward at the end of it that by the time you were 35 or 40, you became a partner. By the time you're 55, you retired, and then you dropped dead at 60. And I think it was that sort of become what we think a lawyer is supposed to be. And I found that really difficult. And I had always been quite a compliant student and school kid and son. And I had my rebellious phase in my junior lawyer phase. And I would just really find it difficult to do all that stuff and work 80 hours a week and be expected to constantly be on call. And so I rebelled a bit and I would speak up and I would talk about things and I would question things. And that became quite tricky, I think, for both me and the organization. And it was even things like, I remember I had three partners that I worked for. I'm still friendly with one of them, but I wouldn't particularly say any of them were nice people. But one of them was particularly, I think she bordered on the sociopathic. And I remember her say she used to like to destroy the secretaries and they would often be in tears. And I remember her saying to me once, she said, Patrick, another problem with you, which is always a good sentence to hear, is
Another,
another,
not
yeah.
just one.
No, it was another. Another problem with you is you're too friendly with the secretaries, and you must know you shouldn't be there from a different class. They're not as good as us, and you must not mix with them. You must not fraternize. You're a lawyer. You must keep distance. And I just enjoyed turning to her and saying, Liz, question for you. She said, yes, Patrick. I went, what do you think my mum is? What job do you think she has? And bless her, Liz was shameless. She is, would you believe it, a secretary? And so just chat me through, do I now distance myself from her? Am I better than my mother? Do I tell her that? Would you like to tell her? I'd quite like to see you tell her. I was incandescent with rage because that's just not a way to treat people. My dad would speak to anyone. I've tried to adopt that attitude in my life. No respecter of hierarchy, none of that. And I just remember thinking how awful that's your life and that's what you want me to be. And I remember saying to her, Liz, have you ever wondered why you as the partner and head of the group, why your work takes ages to come back from the secretaries, whereas mine comes back within 10 minutes? And she said, what do you mean? I said, because they dump your work and they do mine because we're friends and I like them and we get on and I help them and they help me. And they do your work resentfully and slowly. Didn't change anything. And I think we agreed fairly soon afterwards that I was not right for the firm and the firm was not right for me and money changed hands and off I went and I signed a thing and off I went. But it's that whole just be someone that someone somewhere said people should be and follow all these unwritten rules that we won't tell you, but you should innately know. So I really rebelled against that. And I like to think I'm still rebelling against that. I work for a very conservative society in a very conservative industry, but I am the one that is different. And I think it's really important to inhabit who you are, because whoever you are, as long as you're a decent human being, that's what matters. And no one should tell you otherwise. So I feel that really strongly. So the bit about, you never get a short answer out of me, but the bit about follow the rules, no, just break them. Be
Yeah.
be the full you is what I would say.
And I would also say my experiences is that if I meet anybody or anybody in my world looks their nose down at other people in the firm, in the restaurant, in the office, whatever, my immediate thing is A, you are not my people. And B, I'd like to see you survive without them.
Exactly.
Right?
And without the positional power that you have in that. I very much judge people by, do they thank the bus driver when they get off the bus? Do they thank the road sweeper? Do they talk to the person on the till or the checkout, as you would say in the supermarket? How are they
Yeah.
with the waiter? And if you don't hold the
Right.
door open, in all senses, literally and metaphorically,
That's right. Yeah.
you're not for me.
Yeah. And you know what is interesting in sort of the society that we live in today? I actually, if I get a phone call or I am on the phone, when I get up to the check stand or whatever, or I want to order a coffee or whatever it is, I will actually tell the person that I am speaking to, I have to call you back. Maybe it doesn't make a difference, but it just, my rule is it seems rude, right? To talk to somebody else when you're ordering somebody as if they don't exist or they don't matter. And so that's a rule that I've created for myself. And also, I think it also, too, it's just about being present where you are, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And just interacting with other human beings. I have a really good friend, Daniel, who he did my hair for years, fabulous Spanish hairdresser. And he would never queue in a nightclub because he always knew the toilet attendants, right? He would always chat to them. He'd know who they were, their names, their partners, who their kids were, where their kids went to school, who was failing in maths, who was doing well in history. And he would know all of that because he was genuinely interested.
Right.
And because he was, but he never queued in the toilets. And he'd have these long queues and he just wouldn't have to because they'd be like,
That's so funny.
Daniel, here is your carriage. And then you go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how classy is that? How classy is that? Never
Yeah,
queue
there
in
you
the
go.
toilet, that's what I say.
That is a claim to fame.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even
How
with him,
fun.
right? You go out with him anywhere, by the end of the meal, all the waiters are all over him, the chefs have come out, they're all talking to him. So I love that. He's very
Yeah.
inspirational to me, is Daniel.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. All right. You've been in a position of being a successful leader for a long time. What's one thing that people assume that you have all figured out that underneath you still wrestle with?
So I think I project as my sort of nickname is Chatty Patty, and I project as very outgoing, which I am, and very expressive, which I am. But I also project as very confident, which I am as well. I'm confident in my own abilities, but you can put me on any stage, on any platform, in any meeting, and I will do well, in any interview, and I will do well. And I think people think he's got it together, never has to worry about anything. And I've done a lot of work in my life to use my platforms to do good and to speak out and to represent for others. I'm no Kamala Harris, for sure, but I will make change and I will say, hang on, the way you're behaving, important person with power is not on, and I'm going to say that out loud. And so I like to think that I've been a bit of a warrior, so just someone that can do those battles. But over the past 10 years and certainly into and out of COVID, I became more of a warrior, as in I used to be concerned about things. And I was able to mask that because that's what we do. And as a gay man, you mask all your childhood to project a certain image, etc. And I became much more conscious of concern and of just having thoughts in my head that would slow me down and would take up some of my brain space. And it was anxiousness, and I call it anxiety because we don't really think that men do that. It's anxiety is something that in theory, society tells you it's more of a female thing, and it absolutely wasn't with me. And so for me, I get anxious. I've had been on medication for that. I've come off that now and seem to be managing just about all right. But every day, several times a day, I will have something that concerns me. I'm neurodiverse. I have ADHD, late diagnosed. And one of the characteristics of my neurodiversity is I lose things. I leave things on buses. I can't find my keys, what have you. Most of the time, I'd be like, where are my keys? Where's my phone? And so that causes me anxiety. But then also, like coming up against officialdom, like tax returns or any sort of letter from someone just can send me into a spiral. I will get worried. Not a spiral, but it just, my heart will start to go. I have a characteristic of being quite creative. So I will come up with an idea and then I feel I have to implement the idea. And then I will go into anxiety about, I will realize all that I've got to do. It's not that I don't think I can't do it or that I don't have the skill set, but I'm like, oh my God, oh, so much to do. But I now realize that's just part of my process. I always get it done. I always get it done and survive. And I always enjoy getting it done. But I know
Yeah.
that it's not my process.
Yeah, it's interesting because that came up with a client really just in last week. It's not exactly the same as what you're talking about, but just being really hard on themselves. And I think I would use the word, I don't know if I'm making it up or not, it's a real word, but catastrophizing.
Yeah,
Maybe having an interaction with somebody that's hard to read. Or again, so I personally can relate to the losing things. And then having a lot of, it's not just about finding the thing, it's also just about the judgment that I put on myself for having not paid attention. But one thing that I was talking to this client about around the catastrophizing and again, these situations where you feel like you've really given somebody else the power and you're having a hard time reading the situation, so you don't know how it's going to go. Like in the moment, to really, first of all, just the first thing is obviously you have to own it. You have to recognize that you have to stop the spiral.
you definitely do. Yeah.
But then the other thing is, we were talking about like when it goes, write that down, make note of that so that when you get in this other place, you can actually go back to that and be like, oh, yeah, no, actually, it doesn't always go bad.
Agree. And look, I have a technique which is called Feel Good About Yourself Friday, FKF, as I call it. And I will tend to spend 5 minutes on a Friday. Minute number one is what happened this week. Minute number two is what did you have to do in that week? Minute number three is how do you feel about that? Minute number four is what have you learned or gained or what skills do you have? And then minute number five is how do I deploy that, including who do I tell? I find just doing that 5 minutes, and I don't necessarily reward massive achievement. I might reward you were in the room, right? And you didn't fall asleep, or your thing, I didn't fall over in step. The bar to acknowledge something good is incredibly low because it's
Right.
not really about the task. It's about
That's
me
right.
good about myself and feeling confident so
Yeah.
that the next time something comes up. What I've loved about being diagnosed with ADHD is I use it as partly an explanation. Okay, that's why I lose stuff. That's why I don't like to sit at dinner too late. That's why I have lots of ideas. And so I don't now feel hard about myself, but also I use it as a fabulous excuse. It's a chemical thing. It's not my fault. So if you say something, one of my bits of ADHD is I just speak out and I will say stuff before a bit no filter, not in an aggressive way, I hope. But I go, that's just my ADHD, which I'm sure I should be taking more medication for. So I quite like the explain, excuse, and almost empower you to do a bit more of it. So
Right.
lean into it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. All right. If you could rewrite the book on leadership,
I am
what-
rewriting the book on leadership, at least my leadership.
oh, I love it. Okay, so what's one outdated belief that you're throwing away and what are you replacing it with?
So definitely for me, it's the big I am thing. It's the believing your own hype and thinking that because you have this role or this position or you're the parent in the family that you are infallible, that you need to project that to other people and really not, and the things about being a big I am are that you're supposed to believe that you're infallible, that you should tell people when they're wrong and you should criticize them because that's how they should grow. You should be tough, but believing that there's a team just because your name is on the door, believing that I matter beyond having that title, and believing that this is truth that's coming up to you, that people are speaking truth up to you. That's all nonsense, I think. It is not about the title. I am who I was before. So I try and throw all of that out. I don't believe that the task is more important than anything else. I don't believe that clients are more important than colleagues, for example. So buying into that whole efficient, impactful, masculine, manly, go-getty, drivery type thing, which is what I used to be. And COVID, just before COVID and COVID changed me. And actually I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get through this how I get through this. And I have to sleep with myself every evening. And I need to know that that I'm comfortable with what I did today. And so I heard this most by a trainer who she teaches at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and teaches leadership there. And she spoke about you are what your colleagues' children say you are. And that was like a real moment. She thought what they're saying to their friend is what you actually are. And I'm like, oh my God. And I want those kids saying, he's okay, actually. He cares for my mum. He's done well by my dad. He's given him opportunity. He sent him home because he knew it was the nativity play today or whatever it was. And my fundamentals are it's team first. It's about being really kind. I try not to give any negative feedback. I just think it's pointless. I just try and focus on the good stuff, and particularly to observe, identify, call out, say, this is one of the things that you're really brilliant at. Just go and do more of that. The opposite to your particular president at the moment, who has a different leadership approach. And once I started doing that, it transformed my team. I cannot begin to tell you. It transformed how we did things. It transformed the recognition that we got. We showed up in rooms in a completely different way. And just saying to someone, do you not know that you're really brilliant at this? And they'd be like, no, I'm really terrible at it. And I'm like, no, trust me, you're an absolute superstar. Go out on that stage and go and do it. And I think that's been one of the most wonderful things for me to realize a bit too late. I probably realized it in my 50s, that actually being that really positive in that moment in someone's day is, I'm just trying to think. And I surround myself with people like that. My friends are like that in particular. We all take the Mickey, I don't know if that's an English phrase, but we all make fun of each other and stuff, but in a lovely way. But we also say, you're just brilliant at this. We think you're lovely. I loved it when you did that. So that's what I try and do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe in having the right people around you and doing good work, and then the profits will come later.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would say that I agree with that. I think when you chase money, it's pretty empty. But I think when you understand what the value that you provide, whatever product or service, and then you have to figure out the money piece, but when you focus on the value, I think you really create something very important.
I agree, Kim. And the value can be lots of things. It can be the feeling that someone can bring into the room. It can be the attention they pay to this person. It can be their ability to execute work. It can be, I don't know, that they speak different languages, or that they can absolutely master an Excel spreadsheet, or that they are really nice to manage. It can be any of a million things. And I
Right.
would hope that most people have something that's good about them. And I would say most of us don't know. And we haven't been told, and we're not told enough. And
Yeah, I would just putting on my coaching hat just for a second
go
here.
for it.
I would say that depending on somebody's style, but maybe a good rule of thumb around giving kudos to somebody, oftentimes it's very helpful to be specific about
Yeah.
what it is that you liked,
Yeah.
right? Because there are definitely some styles, right? Some people who, if you just give them a good, like, you did a great job, they're
No,
going to
no,
be
no,
like,
no.
just dismiss it. So, one thing I think that is very helpful is saying, you said the spreadsheets, like, but here is the thing that I think is it's subtle and it doesn't get talked about a lot, which is like appreciating somebody for what they do because they do it well and not making it about yourself.
Oh,
And it's very easy to say, because I'm not good at, well, I don't love spreadsheets. Okay. As a matter of fact, somebody sent me I can do a basic spreadsheet, but somebody the other day sent me a spreadsheet and had all these columns and had all these drop downs and it was color coded and it was beautiful. But here's the thing, if I give the compliment and okay, so there was all those things. And if I add in there and like, and I stink it
that's
create
really interesting. Yeah.
creating spreadsheets,
Yeah.
and it's such an it's true, but if you think about complimenting somebody else, it's very subtle, but once you add in the
Yeah.
I
It's
don't do that, now you've actually, instead of complimenting them, you've actually made it about yourself.
Yeah, that's Kim. I hadn't even thought about that. That's probably what I do, at least on occasion. Yeah, let me take that away because that's been really meaningful. That has been really meaningful. Yeah. I love noticing stuff about people and playing it back to them and just they're like, what? And I see it like I've seen it in city law firms for especially people that move to leadership positions. No one tells them anymore because you don't want to be the suck
Right.
up if you work for them. If you're the peer that you think they're competition, if you're their boss, you're too busy doing other stuff. And I hear it time and time again. And I see people and I go, oh my God, did you just see what you just did? That's wow. How did you do that? That's amazing. And I don't know. And you're like, is no one telling you this? And they're like, no, no one's telling me this. And I'm like, God, no.
Yeah.
So definitely my team, I hope that they all felt pretty good each and every day. And at the end of the day, I certainly think I saw a sort of a lightness of touch. And I love it when people can just dance around their job because they're not worried anymore and they're in it and they're enjoying it. And that's what I really love to see. And in my world, which has been education, which is quite often standing up in front of people, if you can dance, if you can make it just this joyous group Zumba class, that's when you get somewhere. So that's what
Oh, you are pulling on my heartstrings. Let's
maybe
do
I am.
Zumba.
I
Oh, all
am.
right, Patrick. I got to come to London. You got to come to San Francisco and we got to dance.
I'm persuadable on the San Francisco thing for sure. When your current regime changes, maybe.
Jeez. Okay. All right. Let's not go there, but I
No,
hear
that's
you.
not.
I hear you and I'm with you. Okay. So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's really helped you grow as a leader and grow as a person? What do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, the mindset shift was I think I must have gone through a period of, oh no, it can't be done, or no, or here are the rules and here's the box in which you need to sit in. And then there must have been a point, and I'm struggling to define it, where I now regard no, that's like, oh my God, that's a yes waiting to happen. So if someone tells me something can't be done or no one's ever done it, or I'm just like, oh my God, yes, we're going to make this a yes. And there have been a few projects that I've delivered. One of them where, for example, we persuaded 50 law firms to recruit atypical people, socially mobile people, as we would call it, so working class people up into a middle class profession. Class is a massive thing over here, by the way, much more than in your country. And I remember starting that process and we thought we might get 5 or 6. And then we got to 20. And I remember telling someone quite junior, and she's going, why is it not 50? And I was like, oh, I've got to go make it 50 now. And what I loved about that was you can just dream a little bit bigger. Nothing's been done till it's been done, right? So the fact that it hasn't been done doesn't mean it's not going to be done. So I run into risk. I love it. That's a really happy space for me. Danger, high voltage. And yes, let's go.
I love it.
Yeah, which is pretty exhausting for people around me, but it's exhilarating for me.
Yeah,
And it's tended to work so far. It's tended to work. I'm here for
I love it. I love it. I'm going to be your cheerleader. You go. Yeah.
it.
So, if you're going to feel any kind of imposter syndrome at this point in your career, maybe a lack of confidence or a trigger, what situation is likely to bring that up for you? And how do you get yourself moving forward again?
Yeah, look, I think I've been relatively lucky in my life and career in that I've always, I think, had a self-belief. Now it might have been that other people have put parameters around it and I have listened to them a bit more, but I'm not riddled with self-doubt, I have to say. And I think it comes from here. I think it comes from knowing I was queer when I was about 5 years old, and I grew up in with a British dad and a German mum in the British Army in Germany, and then going to a boarding school, and it was a Catholic boarding school, and then being a state school, which is like a lowerish class type school, and then going to a very posh, prestigious university. And through all of that, I had to go, no, I'm all right at this. I'm okay. I probably got pushed off the rails a little bit and would be persuaded that someone, because they spoke in a certain way, was better than me. But it took me a little while, but certainly by my late teens, early 20s, I was like, do you know what? I can do stuff. It's fine. I'm going to be okay. And so I am less tolerant than you might think of other people. I'm sure they've got really good reasons for it, feeling that they're imposters. And I use a phrase which is imposter, which is imposter, which sort of goes like this. It says, chances are there are good reasons why you're in this room and in this positive situation. And your job is to, because mistakes don't tend to get made by recruitment, generally speaking. And your job is to work out what it is that got you in the room and gain strength from that. And you've got to go, I'm in the room. I am an imposter. I'm made in the room. And then you've got to, what do you want to do once you're there, and enjoy that and make the most of it. And I use a technique, certainly in my coaching, which I called First 50, which is that I ask someone to reflect over a period of time. It certainly takes a couple of hours if they're going to do it properly, and look back through their life and think about significant and insignificant moments where they've had to do stuff that's been easy, stuff that's been hard, stuff that's been successful and stuff that hasn't, and build up a book of evidence of attitude, approach, effort, achievement, essentially. And if you do that, most of us have done something. You end up with again, the bar has to be really low for it to qualify. And you end up with something. So if I give you an example, I was speaking to one person who was moving from my firm to go to another firm to become a partner. And I could see from her body language she was a bit worried about it. So I mentioned this to her and said she needed to do this First 50 thing. And we did a couple of them. And she happened to be at her parents' that weekend. So she was probably in her 30s. Parents would have been in their 50s and 60s. And she was doing this and finding it really difficult. She just had a blank piece of paper. And she told her parents. And her dad went, do you not remember at kindergarten? And there'd been some sort of potato painting competition or something. And she'd really dug into it and she'd taken it home and she'd really concentrated it. And I think she'd either come first or second in the potato painting competition. So that shows focus and drive and dedication and tenacity and creativity. She said she was crying when he said that. And then from that point onwards, I get it. I'm not really massively affected by imposter syndrome. So because I use this mindset, but also what's going to go wrong? And I don't catastrophize generally. I know that work is there and I get daunted by the amount of work I will have to do. But I just think it tends not to go that badly. If it's a disaster, you move on. And I have had things that haven't gone quite the way I wanted. And I have had jobs that I've left. And you certainly shouldn't feel an imposter from work. It's only work. I would hate to feel an imposter in my relationships and in my family and feel that I wasn't properly contributing, which my husband would rightly say I'm not. He does much more. He runs the house. So anyway, that's a conversation that I'll have with you offline. But I have a thing that self-doubt is possibly self-indulgent, especially if it becomes your default and it stops you doing things and it's your excuse that you use for not doing stuff. I think there's a line at which you cross and it's now self-indulgent and you've got to take responsibility. So it's what I think.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, I think ask yourself, like, you're in the room and build yourself up from there. That really speaks to me. And I love that. And I encourage my clients to do it, but it speaks to me personally too. And so I just actually came back from a conference where I was an awardee, and I don't think I've ever been in a room with more accomplished women, business entrepreneurs, and business owners in my life. And it would be very easy to feel intimidated in that room. And you can trust me, there was more than one time where there had to be a little of that self talk. Listen, you're in the room, they invited you in the room. And I agree with you. Like, it might be a passing thought and I might have to do a quick adjustment, but I don't think I ever sat there and felt like I don't belong in this room.
I
Right.
would have you in the room and I would give you the award for sure. And the other thing is just two things. I write about this sort of stuff on my LinkedIn page because I think you're saying it, but not many people are saying it. The other thing I think to remember is that the system and society is made to intimidate. We build these big buildings, we spend loads on our advertising and on our graphics and we put you in these massive rooms and we call the award this and we have all the music and la la la, and people are dressing in a certain way. And it is to project something. And your job, I think, is to know that is going on,
Right.
to mark it, to name it and go, that's what's going on. And then it's about going, okay, now my responsibility is how I react to that situation.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, I think.
And here's the other thing, Patrick. Everybody poops.
Do you know, it's funny you should say, because I was thinking, can't say that word. So I was coming up with everyone farts out of the same hole. Then I was like, I don't know if I can say that either. Some people fart out of their mouths, let's be honest. But yeah, essentially, we're all pretty similar. And look, I come from a feudal society, from a country that still has our state representative is born into that position. So we are used to that whole caste system, but especially with the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, they are as fallible as anybody else. So yeah, we all poop out of the same hole, as you say.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Patrick, what a fun conversation. And
Thanks to talk to you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. And we got to figure out a way to be in the same part of the world at some point. So, anyways, thank you. Everybody, I've been talking to Patrick McCann. He's really active on LinkedIn. So connect with him on LinkedIn and
Please do.
can, yeah. And for me, this is Kim Miller-Hershon. You've been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. And I have two asks of you. One is that I have a newsletter which comes out weekly, and it just has one thing in it and then one tip for you. And if you're listening and not looking, it always has a style picture. So you can.
If anybody can, you can.
Yeah, so check that out. And then the second thing is that if you like this content and you want to learn a little bit more about how you can grow your business or some of the things that we talk about on the show, I have a free webinar and it's going to be monthly. We'll put the link in the show notes, especially because there's going to be time for questions. So if you want to talk to me and you want to ask some of your questions, join the webinar. And we're doing them monthly at times that I think are good around the world, right? So hopefully you can find a time. You can always message me if the time doesn't work, and we'll figure that out too. So, friend, go out there and be a better human.
Where cliches come to retire, drop that beat, turn down to fire.